welcome back to Helen's Homemade Kitchen. Today we're going to be making pesto. Now while pesto is usually made with basil, I don't have any basil, and you might not either. That is okay. I also don't have pine nuts, and they're really expensive and hard to find. I don't have that, so I will be using another ingredient as well. And you can substitute most of these things. So what you want to start off with, hopefully everybody has a food processor. If you don't, you can always use a mortar and pestle, but find more people have food processors than they do a mortar and a pestle. So you want to put about a cup. You're going to use 2 cups of greens, but you're going to start off putting about a cup inside your food processor. So whatever greens you have, you can use arugula, you can use just kale. I kind of like to cut the difference between kale and spinach because spinach is so delicate and kale has a little bit of a more robust taste. It kind of balances it out. So use whatever flavors make you happy. So I'm going to start off with that. I'm also going to throw in my garlic cloves. You don't need to chop these beforehand, but if you do have minced on hand, that's okay as well. I like to have them whole. You also want to make sure that your garlic is fresh. If you don't know what that means, if you have little green sprouts in them, that means it's not fresh. But there's a trick. What you can do is you can take out that sprout, or endosperm as they call it. All you have to do is cut open your garlic in half and then pull it out. And that's it. Okay? So, throw in your garlic. And we're going to pulse it a few times. And then we're going to add the rest of our greens. You're just basically making more space for all the greens in there. You don't want to puree it or anything like that. Okay, so once it's about that consistency, almost like chopped up parsley, we're gonna start adding some of our other ingredients. Now, most people would use pine nuts. I know some people have used walnuts. You can use all types of nuts for this. Some people use pecans. I personally think pecans are a little bit too sweet for a pesto, but to each their own if you love pecans. But I know a lot of people can't eat nuts. What do? You can have seeds. I like to personally use raw sunflower kernels. They're very small. They look a lot like pine nuts. They give that crunch that you need. So whatever crunch factor that you have, it just gives it an extra little thing. If you don't have it, you can just leave it out, but just know that there will be like you'll feel like something is a little bit missing because the rest of everything is kind of a creamy consistency and you won't get that chunkiness, that nuttiness that you really need. You can toast these. I don't always toast things ahead of time because a lot of the time I'm cooking them afterwards, so I don't want to overcook them. So you can add those. And while you're adding that, you can also add a 3/4 cups of cheese, or 2 ounces if you're grating it. If you have 2 ounces of cheese, I have Parmesan Reggiano. This is mostly called for pesto is mostly called for just Parmesan, shredded Parmesan cheese. But if you have Asiago or you have Monterey, I would use a hard cheese. That's my base, on what you need to do. Hard cheeses, you need a hard cheese. You need 2 cups of greens, hearty greens, dark greens, preferably. You need a nut or seed. And your garlic, of course, that's really not something that you can trade out. I mean, you can probably use shallots or scallions or some sort of part in that family, but I think garlic kind of just does it. If you have garlic powder instead, you can possibly use that, but I would cut it down. So 3 cloves would be about 3 tablespoons. I would use a teaspoon and a half because the garlic powder is so concentrated, it will overpower all of your dishes. So we're going to pulse this a few times just to combine, and we'll add, next thing we'll add is a 4th teaspoon of salt, and salt to taste. That's not very much. I use kosher salt, so that is, it's a lot thicker. It's thicker, but it's lighter in saltiness. So when people say they're using a lot of kosher salt, like a half cup or a cup of kosher salt when you make like a brine or something, they're really not using as much salt as you think. If you're used to table salt is very different. It's very compact and confined and tiny, but it has the most sodium. So when you're thinking, when you want to cut back on your sodium content and your eyes are bigger than your mouth, use some kosher salt. That definitely helps to cut down on the amount of salt that you're using, because it will, it fills up a spoon or a teaspoon very quickly, but it uses a lot less sodium. I personally like it because it's also nice and thick, so it'll penetrate into things like meat and pestos. When you're grinding stuff up, it really gets in there and just has a good flavor. You can also use sea salt if you use that, or some Himalayan salt. And then you're gonna crack in some black pepper. If you have just ground black pepper, that's okay. I don't judge. Okay? And you want to do this again afterwards. After you're done making the pesto, you'll taste it, see where you're at, and maybe add a little bit more salt, maybe a little more garlic, what you feel is necessary. Okay. Now that seems about round up. You can see everything is all mixed in there. Now this is the fun part. You get to drizzle in a half cup of olive oil. Now you want to make sure everything else is mixed together before you do this, because you're slowly going to drizzle it in, and it's just going to combine much like a dressing. So you want to have this not pulsed on all the way, and then you're going to drizzle in a half cup of olive oil. You'll slowly see it, and once you see it start combining together, that's when you're going to stop. To scrape down the sides first. Forget to do that. Now, as you can see, it's nice and creamy. Look at that. It's nice and creamy, and then it also has like the color has gotten much lighter. You can definitely tell that it got into it. Okay, so once it gets to that point, that's when you can use it. Now, what do you use it for? I would use it for, I like to put mine on chicken. I like to put it in pasta salads. I like to bake it. It goes very well with chicken. But you can put it on fish. You can put it in a salad. You can top it on your eggs. Some people do that. I don't do that. So you want to taste it. And you may want to put a little bit more pepper. But at this point, you don't need to have it in here. So I'm going to clean this up and come back. Now that you put it in your bowl, if you need to add anything else, like I feel like mine needs a little bit more black pepper. You can add that. Has more than enough garlic. I can taste the garlic. I can taste the cheeses. Can definitely taste the spinach and kale in there. But it's not like, if you're not like a huge spinach or kale person, I know some people are not, it doesn't taste exactly like you're just eating a bunch of garden. But like if you have, I find that like spinach and kale salads are way better than just an iceberg lettuce salad. Iceberg kind of just like tastes very bland to me. Darker greens have like a more heartier taste, and they're so much better for you. You have no idea. I know that that's not always a selling point for some people, but for me it definitely is, because it not only tastes good, but it is good for me. So I'm going to mix this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it up with plastic wrap. You're going to put plastic wrap, so you're going to take the plastic wrap, put it on top of your bowl or your container, whatever you have. Put it directly onto the pesto so it doesn't brown. It shouldn't brown because of the olive oil and everything else, but you just want to like seal it. This way it gets a lot less air onto it. Okay, and when in about an hour, 2 hours, or hello and welcome back. So now that we let our pesto sit in the fridge, but the reason for that is so that the fibers in the leaves break down a little bit. You ever notice like a salad, like a pasta salad tastes so much better like the next day? It's because of that, it gets time, the marinade gets time to like penetrate everything and make it taste that much better. So now that I've let it sit, this is about half of that recipe. This is a cup and a half of the pesto. The whole recipe makes about 3 cups. So I have some cooled down pasta here. It's cooked, cooled down, and I cut up some chicken. So I'm going to put the chicken inside, and then we'll add the pesto and mix it all together, and that's it. So mix in the pesto, stir it up. Now this is just a basic recipe. You can add on tomatoes, mozzarella cheese, whatever you have on hand. It's really like a fridge friendly salad. pasta salad. You can also do this hot. Sometimes I like to heat it up and eat the pesto hot, but you can also eat it cold. A lot of the times in the summer, this is what I'll have for lunch. And I can eat this like for a week solid. Like, it's so good. All right, and when you're done, that is it. That is pesto pasta salad with chicken. It is delicious. I love it. I hope you do too. And I might just eat this whole thing. So, enjoy.